Now let me ask you a question. How would you feel if tomorrow I would tell you that your favorite writer is organizing a book club and you would be invited? I'm sure you would be elated and you would think that, I know, as we say around here, God placed his hand on your head. That's a Romanian saying. Well, I had this opportunity when I was quite young, when I was a teen. And my mom worked for this big oil and gas corporation, Romanian corporation by the name of Petrom, that around that time was acquired by OMV, another oil and gas multinational corporation. And because they had a lot of money to spare, they decided to organize a book club. And who would be the one to lead the book club? Not other than Mircea Cărtărescu, famous writer of Nostalgia, Solenoid, and Blinding. I think Blinding was also translated into English. He wrote many more books, but some of them are quite untranslatable if you were to ask me. It was a monthly book club, monthly or fortnightly, but probably monthly. I cannot remember very well. It lasted for about an hour, usually not more than an hour, organized at the company's new HQ. They also built a new HQ. Pretty nice building, by the way. Very cyberpunk. And obviously the attendees were the employees and yours truly went on my mother's behalf, or on my mother's seat. It was surprisingly empty, or at least I felt back then it was empty. I don't know, I think it had a regular attendance of 15 people-ish, and it was the first time I met Mircea Cărtărescu face to face. And in Romania, Mircea Cărtărescu is kind of a big deal. He's not widely beloved. He has his share of haters, and for good reason, because out of all contemporary writers, he is the one that appears in the 5th grade Romanian language and literature book. I think he was the first youngish author that I discovered in my book, and I was like, oh, look, he's just a bit older than my parents. Not only is he still alive, he's just a little bit older than my parents. And he wrote a lot of interesting texts for that textbook. There was, for that series of textbooks. And of course there was one that a lot of people remember, a lot of guys remember, because it was about a boy who was playing video games, and the beginning of the story was told from the perspective of the boy as he was playing the video game. And I remember that he was using metempsychosis for respawning, and then it switches to the POV of the boy, and finally it's the authorial voice who says, oh, you know, I'm actually writing this story, this is a story that I have to send out for the textbook. But also it alludes in the ending, and that's something that the teachers explained to us, that oh, that authorial voice, that's not actually Mircea Cărtărescu, that's just a character that he's playing. Who knows? I get what they mean, and obviously there's room for interpretation. But he was kind of a big deal. I've read some of his books up to that point and was genuinely excited to meet him. And to be honest with you, I was a bit disappointed. I was a bit disappointed because for me, at that age, at 17 years of age, my image of a great artist was Salvador Dali or Ernest Hemingway. Somebody who was larger than life, who commanded a room, somebody that stood out even if they didn't want to. And when I saw Mr. Cărtărescu, he looked like he could be friends with my parents, and I was a bit disappointed. I was a bit disappointed because he was dressed worse than my father, and by that, Also, my dad has a very good sense of fashion. He's one of the most dapper individuals that you'll ever meet. But Mircea Cărtărescu was dressed boring, and for me, clothing at that age was a big deal. As I said, I was expecting Salvador Dali, and I got a substitute Romanian teacher. But I was very... but soon I realized that I stumbled upon a gold mine, because the books that are referenced in the related article to this video, when we analyze the books as opposed to analyzing books in class, there was a whole new approach to reading and talking about the book that I never thought possible. Because for me it was about getting the right answer, getting to the meat of it, getting to what you have to say in the exam. That's how I was taught to read by the Romanian education system, and that was my default reading. Even when I was reading for pleasure, I was thinking what's important for the commentary that I will have to write in order to get a good grade. But with Mircea Cărtărescu, basically he taught me to read books for fun, but more than that, to talk about books just for the love of it. And we didn't discuss characters or themes per se. Honestly, he preferred to talk a lot about style, but also we talked about history and the times that the books were written, and he had a lot of anecdotes that he presented. I loved when a Romanian teacher in school, they would tell us a bit of a literary anecdote, and he had loads of them. With Rakes of the Old Court, if you'll see in the related article, in Rakes of the Old Court, the style that the book uses and the fact that it's so well written, it's not something that's a product of hard applied work. No, it's the product of inspiration over a long period of time. Because Matei Caragiale, the writer of Rakes of the Old Court, didn't write it in one go, or he didn't write a lot of drafts per se of it, but whenever he had a good idea for a paragraph or a scene, he would write it down. And Mircea Cărtărescu told us a story that he carved the book in a table. He was writing by carving the book in a table because he had no pen and paper at that point. It was like in a hotel room or in a hotel restaurant when he was, I think, either drunk or hangover after a party. And what's interesting is that my new class teacher that I had at the time for literature, Mr. Lischman, was a great author. He wrote one of the best, or I think the best textbook in Romania for studying literature in the final years of high school. Mr. Lischman had a similar approach to Mircea Cărtărescu, and they were colleagues. They had been colleagues in university. They went in the army together, because that's how it was in Romania when you were doing your national service. When you're doing your national service, you usually do it with people from your year in university. Guys had to do it 1 year after they got into guys had to do it before they went into university. They went to attend university, but after they were admitted to university, and they would do it with their class, their cohort. It was good. It made for lasting friendship. I think my dad's best friends, they're all from his college days. And Mircea Cărtărescu was colleagues with my class teacher, Mr. Victor Lischman, and they had a similar approach. They wanted you to get into the text as soon as possible. Obviously there was room to talk for the context, and it was actually encouraged. Like our teacher, like in his textbook, before each lesson, which was usually a text, a poem, or extracts from a novel that we were supposed to discuss and analyze and then write a commentary that may or may not be on the baccalaureate, on the graduation exam in Romania. And What Mr. Leishman did was that he wrote a series of 10 to 12 questions after the excerpts, and he would say, oh, find me an image related to water, or find me an image related to horses. Depends on varies from text to text, obviously, but they were simple questions. They were questions that you didn't feel, there was nothing daunting in regards to them. Anybody could answer them. You just had to read the text more or less carefully, and you would answer those 10 to 12 questions. Now, when you had those answers, with a bit of like historical and social context related to the work, you could start to write your commentary. It was that easy. And obviously he would fill in any gaps, answer any questions, and we would write our commentaries, and it was pretty easy. It was pretty easy, and it was actually pretty fun. And Mircea Cărtărescu had the same approach to discussing books. He would go into the text, he would let's read this passage, let's read that other passage. He would be the one reading them, and he's a great reader. I actually have some audiobooks read by him, and it's a pleasure to listen to Mr. Cărtărescu read. And he's also a very nice guy. I remember walking into him in the mall some years back, and back then I had a website. This was before I had my Substack. You should visit, by the way, and that's how you support me, by going on Substack. And sorry for the shameless plug-in. I stumbled into Mircea Cărtărescu. I actually started writing seriously. I have this website, and let me write down that website. I don't know if he ever had time to check it, or my work then wasn't. I'm not that proud of my work. I'm proud for starting my writing career, my literary career, but I'm not necessarily proud of that work as a whole, as a corpus from that period. But those are beginnings. Another thing he did was my friend Emma, who's a poet. You can check her work. I actually have some translations of some of her poems. My friend Emma, she was planning on studying literature, going to read literature for college, and Mircea Cărtărescu wrote her a very nice dedication on one of his books that I bought. There was I can't remember what book. It was the graphic novel version of Melancholia, and it was a newly released book at the time. And I went to Mircea Cărtărescu and I said, "Can you write something nice for my friend?" And he wrote her a very nice dedication. I was like, "I'm excited to be your professor." Very nice guy. And another interesting thing about that book club was that one of the employees of Petrom, Mr. Andrei Panțu, he also became a writer, a published writer, and he was like, if I remember correctly, it was usually me and Mr. Andrei Panțu, and there was also another guy who was a bit older, who was, I think, in his early 60s. Mind you, the age, the median age at that book club was, I think, 35 at most, if not, I think 32. Very young people. And it was me, Mr. Andrei Panțu, that older gentleman, and Mircea Cărtărescu, who basically talk during most of the lessons. And for me, it was a formative experience. Needless to say, from Mircea Cărtărescu I learned about Steinbeck, I learned about Benedict Erofev, very interesting author. I learned to appreciate Rakes of the Old Court by Matei Caragiale, which was a book that I read and I was like, oh, it's okay, just another Romanian book. But he actually taught me how to appreciate style itself, and how important style is, because as I said earlier in this video, I was stuck in the framework of you need to get the information for the correct answer for a certain question. And Mircea Cărtărescu just said no. Ask what questions you want from the book. And the book, if it's a good book, it will answer them easily for you. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, turn on that bell notifications button, and leave me any comments. Thank you very much, B. Bartolo, for always commenting. This video is for you. I really appreciate your support, and even if you're the only one watching this video, I'm very happy that I made it, and looking forward to your very insightful thoughts that you leave in these comments. And thanks everybody for watching. Have a nice day, and make sure to read literature that lingers. Bye.